Welcome to this episode of Kim's Wellness Space, the podcast. We are now on, let me just check, episode 34. If you have been around for a while, you'll know that last week's was all about Tough Mudder, had that really big bumper one. But actually, October is more about talking to other people about other parts of wellness. If you've been around for a while, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that for me, wellness isn't one thing, it's a whole myriad of things. And one of the most important things I talk about is sleep. And so I'm really excited for this conversation today, because today I am going to be talking to Evie, who is a sleep consultant. And yeah, I think we'll just dive straight in before I talk too much. So welcome, Evie.
Hi, Kim. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited about talking to you about this. So as I was just saying, I think that sleep is so important, and I always have it at the top of my list when I'm working with my clients for their health and wellness. So I think this conversation is brilliantly placed. So can you tell us a little bit of about how long you've been a sleep consultant and how you kind of got into that?
Yeah, sure. So my background is actually nursing. So I've been a nurse now for 20 years, showing my age a bit there. And a few years ago, I was working in Singapore. That's where I currently live. And I was a clinic manager in a pediatric clinic. And during COVID, it was a tough time for everyone, but especially new mums and new families and new parents who were absolutely isolated. And the one common theme that came up over and over again was they were exhausted, they had no support, and there was this huge lack of sleep. Now that's the same for a lot of parents, but I think COVID really, made it even worse because they couldn't go out, and there was, it was just really, really bad. And I think as healthcare professionals, doctors and nurses included, it's not something that we ever have any training about during our, during when we go to university and things. And it was a big gap, really. So it was at that point that I was like, right, I need to support these parents, these mums especially, a lot more. And that kind of sparked my interest initially. And then I actually got pregnant with twins. And I already had one. So I was like, right, how am I going to cope with this? So I did my sleep consultant training whilst I was pregnant.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's how it came about. And yeah, I think my nursing background is brilliant because it helps me do my job much more holistically, because I have a good look at everything. So yeah.
Absolutely. And you're right. I think COVID isolated everybody so much that it was hard to, it's always hard to ask for help, but it made it particularly difficult, didn't it, to pick up on these things?
Really, really hard. I mean, it was like just a constant stream of mental health problems surrounded these poor people that were completely isolated with no support. So it really gave me the motivation to make that change.
I think it's really important. To be fair, I've met lots of people in my life. I haven't ever met a sleep consultant before. But people generally have really bad quality sleep. So I think it's super important.
Yeah, and there's no emphasis on it. People are like, yeah, I'm going to get fit, I'm going to exercise. Yeah, I'm going to, de-stress and all this stuff. But one of the biggest things that affect your overall health and well-being for adults and for children is lack of sleep. There is so much scientific evidence now that shows it has a huge, profound effect on physical and mental health. So, comorbidities I could list forever. And it's just not given enough, enough airtime, really. Like, you can't function as a human if you don't sleep. So then you can't implement all the other things that improve your overall wellness.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We're as a society, I think we're driven for this being busy, and busy is the goal, and hooray for busy. And actually we need to start prioritizing rest and sleep above the busy, because the busy is way harder if you're tired.
Absolutely. And it makes you really quite ill in the long run if you don't get that amount of required sleep that you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially in children. What I see in children that I work with quite a lot is that we fix their sleep problems, and they have these huge developmental milestones. They'll all of a sudden start talking, they'll all of a sudden start crawling or walking or become just happier. And I think you can see it. For me, the job satisfaction is amazing because you can see the benefits within a week. They go from these horrible, grumpy babies to, happy, playful children, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, and it's amazing how quickly it changes. Like you're saying, like within a week. I mean, that's fast, isn't it?
It is. It is amazing.
Yeah. So I know that you work with children, but which parts of the work that you do with them could we kind of relate to ourselves as adults?
Quite a lot of it, actually, Kim. So when I work with my paediatric clients, it's never just about going to bed and going to sleep. I have a huge in-depth analysis of everything. So I look at how much stimulation they're getting, how they're doing with feeding, what the dietary intake is if they're already taking solids, are the parents stressed or anxious? So I look at everything, and it's like a big jigsaw puzzle. So there's no one quick fix to sleep. And adults are exactly the same. If I gave you, a nice bedtime routine to do, if you're someone that's a chronically bad sleeper, adults or children, it's not going to fix your sleep problem. You have to get to the root cause of what's causing the sleep issues. Now, with children, it's often very multifaceted. Small babies do need to feed at night. But if you, have a really good feeding, nutritional intake during the day, adequate stimulation, and as little stress as possible, and often that's with the parents, then you can get consolidated periods of sleep much quicker. And it's exactly the same for adults. If you are chronically stressed, whether it's work or children, if you're chronically, drinking way too much caffeine, have a very bad diet, and not doing any outside activity, the best thing to help sleep in children and adults is walking in the morning. That first morning sunlight helps your body produce melatonin at night. So, all these things combined, it's absolutely the same for adults, really. And the other thing that's really important is if you're a parent with children and you commit to, right, I'm going to help them sleep now. I'm going to do this and implement really good strategies to help them get that consolidated sleep. Instantly, the biggest feedback that I get regularly is, oh my God, you've changed my life. I can sit down with my husband and have a meal at night. My marriage is better. I don't feel like I'm a walking zombie anymore. I've got clarity of thought. My output at work is better. I'm enjoying life more. I'm enjoying my children more. So the knock-on effect, I think the effects are, the benefits for children in my job are huge, but the benefits for the parents are equally as big. A lot of the work that I do is centered around making sure the parents, and especially the mums, are okay. It's a huge part of my job because a lot of them aren't. A lot of them come to me when they're already broken, and already on their knees. So how do I then, work with them to get them to a place? Often I have to, not often, but I do have to say occasionally, sometimes to the parents, I'm more than happy to help you, but you have got to get help first. So I've got wonderful network of people that I work with that I can say, right, I think you really need to address your underlying anxiety as a parent first, which is completely warranted because you've got reasons to have that anxiety, and then I can help you. Or I get parents that come to me that are in absolute agony and pain because they've been rocking their children to sleep, and they've got really bad arm injuries and back injuries and carpal tunnel in their wrists. I'm like, right, let's get you sorted as well. Let's send you to a physio, an osteopath, a doctor. So my job is very much about helping and supporting the whole family, and especially the parents, because if the parents aren't physically and mentally well, then it's very hard for them to implement changes that are going to help their children.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so fascinating. And I just want to go back just a tiny bit because it was like music to my ears. you saying, sunlight and getting outside in the morning, because I have a list of 5 things that I work with my clients. The first one is sleep, always, and the second one is sunlight. And I think I know it's quite ironic we're chatting online now, but everything is so online that sometimes people forget to get outside. And I'm a yoga teacher. I also teach people how to breathe, and to get up from your laptop, get outside, just even if it's for 5 minutes, it makes a huge difference. So for you saying that walk in the morning with sunlight, I mean,
absolutely. And I've made a conscious effort recently. I don't book any clients on a Monday morning till 9:30, because after a weekend with my 3 crazy children, I've got twins, I need that space to myself, that sunlight and that walk. I go for a walk for an hour. Sometimes I try and run, which I'm not very good at, but I know. And I'm lucky enough to have that insight, because my children do sleep at night, and I'm okay mentally, not always, but and that is huge for me. If I don't do that on a Monday morning, my whole week is a lot worse.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important, and it's so nice to hear you say that it's not just one thing. Like that, it's multi-layered, and you need to look at the whole big picture. I had a conversation with someone this morning, and they were saying that they can't do a food plan. They can, they absolutely have. It was nothing to do with that. It's that the other areas of their life are completely out of control at the moment, and so it's affecting that. And you do have to make sure that you attend to everything, not just the one thing.
And I think in our culture now, especially the younger generation, they want a quick fix to everything. Social media, right, do this and it'll all be fine. People expect, right, I'm just going to do this one thing and I'll feel better and my child will sleep better and then I can have more sleep. It's not about that. Sometimes I work with clients and their child starts consolidating sleep. Sometimes for 12 hours at night, parents still can't sleep. Because they've still got postpartum anxiety. The children might be 12 months old already. They've still got postpartum issues or trauma or life stresses with jobs that they haven't resolved. So it's so complicated. And in adults and children, it's not just, the old methods of sleep training of leave them in a room to cry at timed intervals. That's obviously not what I do, but that's not fixing the underlying reason, and it's the same with adults. You have to look at your overall health and well-being.
Absolutely. And a lot of the ladies that I work with are, because of our age, we're kind of perimenopausal or menopausal beyond, and sleep is so important for that. If you have brain fog, sleep really helps.
And the other thing about our generation, including myself, I've just turned 40 and I've got 1.5-year-old twins. We're having children when we're starting menopause and perimenopause, and myself included. Like, that in itself is a struggle. So you've got children that don't sleep, and you've got all the symptoms that start creeping in of perimenopause that are going to stop you from sleeping anyway. And you're emotional, you're exhausted, all these extra things, and you're trying to run around after young children. Like, the pressures now for my generation, particularly that did have careers before they had children, are just compounding this overall, over parental overwhelm, because everything's kind of collided at the same time against you, kind of. You've got young children, you've got careers, you've got perimenopause, you're losing muscle mass, you don't have any time for yourself. Like, it's just like, it's hard, and you have to really unpick that and to really achieve any kind of just health and well-being for yourself, let alone your children.
It's very easy to get lost in the overwhelm of that, isn't it? And also we as mums, we have huge mum guilt, don't we? I mean, it's a long time ago now since my children were babies, but I do remember when they first started sleeping through the night, and I didn't sleep because I was like, well, they haven't woken up, so obviously there's something wrong with them. I'm gonna have to poke them.
Like breathing, let me check.
Exactly.
I've got one client at the moment who gets up, sets his alarm for 12 o'clock. He's got twins. Sets his alarm for 12 o'clock to make the milk, sits waiting for them to wake up for their first feed, to pounce on them.
Goodness.
And I'm like, okay, we're going to change this a little bit.
Yeah.
This is not
Oh
good
gosh.
for anyone, you know, it's really
No.
hard.
Yeah,
So
it
hard.
is really hard. Oh, goodness me. So, the children that you work with now, they're getting really good information. Parents are getting really good information. Do you think that relates to when they become adults? Then they have a better sleeping pattern and maybe they will share the better sleeping regimes?
Absolutely. I think it's like anything in life. If you see your parents modeling, you know, behavior, you're much more likely to do it as an adult. So if in your household, when you're growing up, sleep is a priority and there's a routine around it, and you're told from a young age, you know, you've got to go to bed at 7 or 8 o'clock because it's really important because you've got to go to school tomorrow.
Yeah.
Mummy and daddy are going to go to bed as well. That sets them up. It's a skill and it sets them up for life. And sleep is also a coping mechanism. And this is what I try to explain to my clients that are really struggling with a lot of mum guilt. A lot of my clients are feeding to sleep and they don't want to do it anymore, but they feel like they have to. And I say to them, look, achieving good sleep is a skill that they will have for life. And when they get older, let's say, for example, they leave home and they've got a job or they're doing exams or they've got something really important coming up. If you've modeled the behavior and instilled those, you know, behaviors from a young age, they will independently, when they're not living with you, think, oh, I've got a big job interview tomorrow. I'm going to go to bed early and get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
So it has a huge knock-on effect for the next generation, because when they're in times of fight and they're anxious about stuff, they'll think, right, maybe I need to go to bed earlier tonight.
Yeah.
And it's a coping mechanism. When I've had a really, really rubbish day, I'm like, I'm just going to give up. I'm going to bed. You know, I just can't give anymore. And you do wake up in the morning if you've slept well, and you feel so much better. It's like, for example, if you exercise with your children are much more likely to exercise. If you smoke in front of your children and they see that, you know, your children are much more likely to smoke. There is good, solid scientific evidence to show that the way you're nurtured as a child has profound effects on you. And it's not always cultural. I think in the West, just I grew up in the UK, as did you, Kim.
Yeah.
You know, my grandparents and my parents kind of like, children should be seen and not heard now. Not that I think that's the case anymore, but we went to bed at 7 o'clock, and we'll be tired as if we woke up, if we didn't. And so, but in a lot of cultures, it's not like that. So especially here now, I mean, my husband's Malaysian, and his family completely don't understand what I do. They're like, what? We didn't just go to bed when we go to bed. I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be like that. But within Asian society, very much like some areas of Europe, children will nap for very long periods of time during the day, and then they'll go out for evening meals with their parents. Now, that doesn't mean that those children have got bad sleep, but it means that you have to be culturally sensitive, and you know, you have to address if a parent that's culturally different to me comes to me, I'll ask what their goals are. And it might be that their children have a lot later bedtime, but we compensate for that by giving them later nap times, things like that. It's hard because your natural circadian rhythm for children especially wants you to go to sleep between 7 and 8. It's their natural, that is just how your body produces melatonin and the times that it does. And if you miss that window, it's very, very difficult to get them to sleep because they become overtired. They start producing cortisol, and their melatonin levels start to dip. And so they become, you know, it's very difficult to get them to sleep. So it is cultural. But what I would say to parents where, you know, in their household, they never grew up with a bedtime, you know, what do you want for your children? And what do you want for you and for your family? It doesn't have to be the same as your parents were. It doesn't mean that they were bad parents. It doesn't mean that you're a bad parent for wanting something different. But the crucial element for all my clients is what is going to work for your family.
Yeah.
You have to make that decision. And that's different for everybody. Some of my clients want to just change their sleep association. They want to pack to sleep instead of nurse to sleep. So we get them there. Some of my clients want no sleep associations at all, and we get them there. And neither doesn't mean that any of the options are any bad or worse than the other. It's about what works for you as a family. And that's so important. As ultimately, that is what will get you to success. Because if it's no good me telling you, right, we're going to have 12 hours of sleep overnight, when that's not going to work for your family. So you really have to tailor it and model what you want in your children.
So I absolutely love that. I love that, because that's, for me, that's everything that wellness is. You know, you can't say this is wellness and it's a box and do this, and you'll be healthy. Like, every single one of us has a different experience, different life, different things that put on us. So yeah, it just totally makes sense that that would be the case. And
a good friend of mine, a good friend of mine, Kim, is a coach, and she specifically coaches women with overwhelm. And she said something that really resonated with me recently on one of her social media posts. And it was, don't feel like, you know, in your me time as a mum, you have to go and have your hair done. You have to go and have a pedicure. That doesn't give, it certainly doesn't give me, and that's why it resonated with me. That doesn't give me, you know, calm. It doesn't make me feel better. I don't like having my hair done. I don't like having my nails done. But for me, and she said, don't feel like you have to use the same coping mechanisms that everybody else does. And for me, my, you know, clarity of thought comes from work. So people are like, oh, why are you working till 10 o'clock at night? It's because I enjoy it. And I don't do that all the time. But that for me is my sanity. It's my safe space. It gives me clarity. And it allows me to feel much calmer than when I spend 24 hours, 48 hours with my children, you know?
Absolutely.
You needed. So I think it's really important to find, you have at the beginning of any wellness journey, whether it's about your physical health, your mental health, you know, it's about finding what's right for you. And I think society makes women especially feel like there's only one right way, you know, and there isn't. I'm sure you see it with your clients, you know.
Absolutely.
They'll achieve their goals much better in two completely different ways for two completely different people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you couldn't be more right. And you know, that's like, for me, for my coaching, I always say it's bespoke, because I can't do one fits all. Like, I have to understand that person to be able to understand what they want and how we're going to get there. And I actually really resonate with what you were saying about your friend's post as well, because it's taken me a long while, but I now know that, so for my husband to recharge his batteries, he spends time with people. For me to recharge mine, I like silence. I like to be completely on my own. Don't have to necessarily be doing anything. It could be something really mundane, like doing the hoovering, but the time by myself makes me feel better. And I fought against that for so long. And then all of a sudden I was like, no, this is what I need. This is what I need. And now I've started honoring that. It makes so much more sense.
But it's realizing that it's not always as easy as it's quite hard to find what works for you. It's not like suddenly you wake up and go, actually, I need to be on my own and just be with my thoughts. You don't know that until you've tried it a few times. And so it's hard to get to that place. Sometimes I recommend to my clients that they go and stay in a hotel for a night. I've had a few of them do that. I'm like, you can't gain perspective about what you want when you're constantly overstimulated, constantly needed, and constantly stressed. You're constantly in fight or flight mode. You know, go and have that clarity of thought. Some of them, it stresses them out more if I suggest it, so I leave it. But it works fantastically. You need to take yourself out of the situation to really realize what you need.
And absolutely.
It's not just about your children, because if you're not physically and mentally well, then your children won't be, and you can't look after them. So my biggest thing with mum guilt is, if I go for a run on a Saturday morning, I'm not with the kids and I feel completely guilty. So if my husband's working on a Saturday, which he often does, I'm like, no, I'm going to take the kids to the park. And then I'm like, well, actually, I could take them to park in the afternoon, but really, I should have prioritized myself. And, you know, some days you do and some days you don't. It's a work in progress, right? But it is important to prioritize yourself when you've got young children. So important.
Yeah. And I think naturally as parents, or especially as mums, we put ourselves at the bottom of the priority list, don't we? Without even noticing that we've done it, all of a sudden we slide down, and then it takes a long time to get yourself back up on the top, and to be on the top of that list without guilt definitely takes practice.
I think that comes back to what we were saying earlier about being a role model for your children. And I do try and practice what I preach, but it's hard. But I often say to my clients, you know, if you are leaving them for an hour to go for a walk or do something for you, you are telling them that you are just as important. And when they grow up, they will know that they are important too, and that their feelings and that their physical health is important, and that they should then prioritize that as adults. You know, it's so important to model that for them. But again, society is like, oh, if you're not with your children 24/7 doing amazing things on Instagram, then you're a bad mom.
I know, terrible.
Instagram doesn't show you is the absolute complete mental breakdown of all 3 children, like 30 seconds after you stop filming, you know.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that we don't show a bit more of real life, isn't it? Like Instagram and social media is lovely, but it is all so shiny, and you know, life is not shiny, is it? There's ups and downs all the way through for
shiny,
all
and
of
it
us.
really affects people's mental health because they're judging
really
themselves against a very fake standard.
Yeah.
Like I run a baby group to every other week, and these mums are coming saying, I feel like a failure, you know, I don't enjoy being a mom, and all these emotions come out. I'm like, you do realize you are normal. Everything else that you see is not normal. Your feelings and your emotions are completely normal when you've all of a sudden had a career and now you're looking after this human that doesn't talk to you. So let me tell you straight away, you know, you are the majority, not the minority. And they're led to believe that they are the minority, so they feel like even more isolated. I'm very passionate about mums. I'm running my playgroup tomorrow, and I've got a fantastic counselling clinic called Us Therapy coming to help me and help some of the mums with just coping strategies to how to look after themselves, because it's really important.
Yeah, your mums are so lucky that you have so much passion. That's amazing, absolutely amazing. So just sort of changing a little bit and bringing it away from children, but bringing it back to us as women. If you had to give someone one piece of advice of what they could do to help improve the quality of their sleep, we know it's not going to sort out all of their problems, but just a starting point, like what would you advise people to do?
I think they have to look at the underlying issue. What is the main thing that is affecting your sleep? It's always multifaceted, but what is the one main thing? Are you addicted to Coke and caffeine and tea and coffee? Are you having no physical exercise? Is your job so stressful that you lie awake at night and then you wake up in the night, you know, absolutely stressed? Are you perimenopausal? Do you need blood tests taking? Is your thyroid okay? Like, there is so many things, but normally there's one that's bigger than all the rest. And so you have to find that one thing. And if that means, you know, working with a really good GP, working with a really good counsellor, I work with fantastic counsellors here in Singapore, you know, to find that thing that's really a roadblock. It could be postpartum anxiety, which is actually a physical, you know, it's a hormone-induced health issue, medical issue, just as perimenopause and menopause is. So do you need hormone replacement therapy? You know, these things individually won't instantly make your sleep better.
No.
But normally there's one underlying issue, and then everything else slowly, gradually falls into place. So if you are perimenopausal as a woman, and you know, you need to change your diet. I'm not an expert, but you know, I'm getting there because I'm nearly there. But you know, change the diet, change the type of exercise you do. All these things have a profound effect on sleep for perimenopausal women, as do, you know, underlying stresses, children. What support network? Are you a single parent? You know, do you need support? How are you going to get that support? And when I do workshops, and I'm doing sleep workshops with the counselling with Us Therapy, it's okay if I come in and say, right, these are the 6 fundamental things you need to change to improve your child's sleep, or as an adult, your sleep. But what are the barriers? You know, there's barriers there. And if we don't address those barriers, then you're going to see no improvements. So what is that
absolutely.
key fundamental barrier? Is it that, you've got 4 children and you can't get your poor 1-year-old to bed at 7 o'clock because all 3 children are demanding your time? Do you need physical support from a partner or a parent to come in at 6:30 and support and look after your other 3 children for you, to then, so you can get your little one down? As an adult, do you need, you might need blood test taking. Is there something physical underlying those sleep conditions? So I would always advise everyone to take a holistic view and find the one thing, the catalyst. Start with that one thing, and then it'll spiral. And if you continue to build on that one thing and implement other strategies around it, you'll get long-term benefits. And that's what you want. You want to see improvements forever, not just for a week because, you cut out caffeine. What's making you drink so much caffeine,
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, really good advice. Yeah, that's brilliant.
In my case, I've got far too many children.
I think that's really good advice. I mean, one of the things that I always say with my clients is if they're struggling with like planning out food or planning movement or, just wanting to be healthy, my first question is always, well, why do you want to do that? And it's never their first answer. The whole, I don't know, like movement, well, I'm moving because I want to lose weight. That isn't actually really why they're moving. They think it is, but actually if they ask themselves a few times, there's usually something else much more important underneath. That's the real, and it's the same what you were saying with sleep. You need to kind of look and then look again and maybe look 2 or 3 more times to find that absolute
that is
bottom.
really hard for people to do because people don't want to admit it to themselves what the underlying issue is. And that's why getting the right support at the right time is crucial. It's hard, especially if you've got to pay for it. Yes. But there are a lot of services out there that you don't have to pay for. You do have to look hard, which is hard if you're already not in a great mental place. It's hard to find those support services. But you have to get support and help. Like you can't do it on your own. And I think time immemorial, especially in certain cultures, is just carry on, get on with it. I had to do it, so you've got to do it. And it's not like that anymore. No. There's so much more help and support available. And science has moved on. There's so much more, progression in, right. So if I want to achieve, I'm just starting to get perimenopausal or menopausal, and I am not losing any weight, the science behind it is there now to say, right, you need to do this, this, and this. And the science behind children's sleep is there. There's lots of evidence and lots more options available now. And I think it's shouting that from the rooftops. It doesn't have to be like this anymore. You don't have to be this hot mess just because you're perimenopausal. You don't have to be sleep deprived because you're a parent. That's what needs shouting, and that's what makes me passionate, because it is still reinforced, and I see it all the time. Oh, my kids never slept. That's just being a parent. Oh, well, we were all a bit crazy when we went through the change. Oh, well, you can't exercise if you've got kids. Can't eat healthy because, just too hard. It doesn't have to be like that anymore.
No, it doesn't. Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
It's frustrating.
It is, but hopefully conversations like this will keep spreading the word. The more we talk about it, hopefully other people will, and at some point, everyone will be talking about it, which will be amazing. Absolutely amazing. The time has flown, but thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so interesting.
Pleasure. Real pleasure. And just urge anyone that's struggling with sleep to get help. There's so many resources online available, whether it's for yourself or for your children. It will have a huge impact on your mental and physical well-being overall. Just don't feel like you're alone. There is always help available.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Evie. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you.
Lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, I really hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. I know I certainly did. As we have just said, sleep is super important. If you are struggling, then please reach out to Evie or anyone that's nearby. Ask for that help. I'll make sure that there's lots of information in the show notes. And of course, you can reach out to me as well if you want to, and I can guide you into the right place. But yeah, super important subject. So thank you for listening, and I will speak to you all soon.